Halo Campaign Evolved is the second remake slash remaster that we have now gotten for the first Halo game. Now, if you've been inside the Halo community for a fair bit of time, you know that the opinions on the first remaster are very one-sided. Everyone says to play in the original graphics and that the first remaster was unfaithful, though it did do one thing that I think every remaster past this point should be doing, and it's the toggle between the original visuals and the new visuals. Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary didn't change gameplay or add anything other than the terminals, and it was Halo Studios' first time with the franchise. And I think that this was a missed opportunity to do Halo Combat Evolved right 10 years later. And now they're trying to do the same thing 25 years later, and I want them to hit the mark this time, especially with introducing it to a new audience. So let's go over the good, the bad, the ugly of Campaign Evolved. Before I jump into the video, I want to get out of the way the things I liked about what we saw from the gameplay trailer and other people's gameplay that were at HCS. Chief and Foehammer look great. I actually couldn't help myself and just smile seeing the two. I may prefer Lito's model, but this is still great. They've added so many cool details such as the bullet in the chamber of the Magnum. The effects on the Needler and the plasma pistol look great. In Campaign Evolved, they're updating the vehicles to be more in line with previous titles. You can now EMP vehicles, and you can also board vehicles. These changes are great, and like I said, perfectly in line with considering they were things they were in 2 and 3. And speaking of things they were in 2 and 3, I hope dual wielding comes back as well. Even if it wasn't all that great, and it makes balancing way harder, it was just fun to do. Part of the reason I'm confident dual wielding will come back is because there's going to be 6 new guns added, and they dropped the assault rifle down to 32 rounds. This has me thinking that the SMG is going to be back, so if the SMG is back, it'd be a great time to add dual wielding as well. So along with the 6 new weapons, we're getting 3 new missions that Halo Studios has confirmed that it's going to be about Johnson and Chief's relation pre-reach, and it's going to be focusing on some of the missions that they would have had went on. Oh, and for the whole reason it existing to begin with is to introduce PlayStation players to the franchise. And I personally think that's really exciting that new people that maybe haven't gotten a PC or an Xbox now have a chance to play one of the best FPS games of all time. So far, it looks like it's going to be a great package to introduce PlayStation players to Halo. And I like Microsoft's initiative to bring more of their first-party exclusives to PlayStation. But there are some issues in the presentation, and I'd like to address those. But before I do, I need to talk about what made the original so special. Halo Combat Evolved was such a special game for so many reasons. The big things, such as the music, the visuals, intuitive controls, the story, the gameplay loop, down to the smaller things, such as the plasma pistol heat shield opening out to protect the player's hands, the cool cock of the pistol every time he brings out the magnum, the death animation of the enemies, the shotgun having an empty reload, which many games in 2001 wouldn't have bothered to animate. They knew how strong the magnum was and kept it in, the 60-round assault rifle that just burrs out bullets. Like, just listen to this thing. They weren't worried about balance, they wanted to make a fun game. A game which without sprint made you feel like a super soldier. Not only was the gameplay just really good, but it could create some wacky ass moments. Grenades could go off and a chain reaction, shoot down a Banshee and it'll just fall right into you. There's a lot of just funny, wacky moments that can happen. And part of that is due to the in-house physics engine that they use for Combat Evolved. This physics engine was also responsible for the fact that any slight movement would wreck your shit. The gameplay is the most important thing that makes a fun game, but there's things that make a game interesting, and what makes Halo interesting is its music, its story, and its visuals. Halo CE is unique from the rest of the series visually, and is very much a product of its time with its heavy Y2K influence. It has those deep blues and greens, and while a little dated, still incredibly interesting skyboxes. The low lighting when you go through
This cave is not a natural formation. Someone
to a Covenant ship full of bright purples that shine with the power of God, and bendy geometry that compare weirdly to the boxy UNSC geometry, onto the beautiful tropical island of Silent Cartographer, to the starkly contrasted snowy valleys of Assault on the Control Room, which honestly just looks like one of the coldest environments of the 6th generation of consoles, to the foggy, low visibility, damp swamps of 343 Guilty Spark, which bring the horror vibes heavily to Halo Combat Evolved, to the derelict library, once sterile, now tainted by an invader. There's so much variation in style in all of these environments. You go from a ship to an open semi-linear but open experience where you can kind of choose where you're going to go at any point, to the closed environments of a Covenant ship, to a sandy beach, to a snowy valley, and then to a cold ancient structure. So much variation there, and so much interesting environmental storytelling. It may not have had wildlife because of limitations, yet the world feels lived in, almost as if the Forerunners could return, yet have not been there for hundreds of thousands of years. This, plus the low poly aesthetic, leads to a liminal feeling. Another thing that adds to this aspect of feeling liminal is the music, coming from Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore. The main theming they were going for is ancient and mysterious, and the main track nails this with the Gregorian chants. Moving away from the music, but there's something a lot of people miss, including Halo Studios. There are 4 different metal texture used in Forerunner structures: a rustic metal, silver metal, gold, and the wall painting and texturing. It isn't just one clean silver metallic with some engravings, there's a little more character to it, but I'm jumping ahead of myself. These different textures lend to the aging of the ring and it being taken over by the environment that they were created to hold. Not only that, but the lighting. Now, I was trying to stay positive during this part, and I'm going to, but I need to criticize the first remaster to make this point. So I'm going to lay out 3 locations with 2 side-by-side comparisons, and take a moment to pause the video and take in these 6 images and tell me what you think makes the difference. For me, it's the lighting. Anniversary, while looking beautiful, is washed out with the lighting, removing some of that mystery / imagination filling. It also takes away some of the atmosphere. What makes the first cave so interesting is that it's super dark, and for the first half, you're essentially navigating with the lights of the hog. And what makes 343 Guilty Spark so spooky and unnerving is the darkness and the fog. And in the anniversary graphics, that atmosphere is removed, and in turn you get pretty graphics that remove a lot of the vibe of the original. This factor is what has made the anniversary graphics age like milk. It removed a big part of the atmosphere for higher fidelity graphics, and in my eyes this is a downgrade for what it does to the overall immersion, and what made the original so special, because despite being a super soldier, the Flood as a concept of an enemy is terrifying, and adding all this light removes some of the horror. I don't want Campaign Evolved to follow in these footsteps. Now it's time for the most or least fun part of the video, depending the kind of Halo fan you are. Halo Campaign Evolved has a lot to improve upon. Let's get it out of the way. Sprint. I am not a fan of Sprint being in Halo. It's okay in Battlefield or COD or a game built around Sprint, but adding in Sprint for the sake of adding it in to a game that was not built for it will have a lot of knockoff effects that will make the game bad. I understand that there is a toggle. Don't comment telling me why I shouldn't care because there is a toggle and that I control the buttons I press. It's a lazy argument and it ignores the devs' intentions for how they want the game to be played. Now you may be asking, why does Sprint matter at all? Why does having a quote-unquote modern feature and a modern remake matter? Well, let me explain. In missions like Assault on the Control Room, it's going to feel much smaller, and it's not going to be clear that you need to use vehicles to get to where you need to go because of the sprinting. It will change enemy AI packages because unless you add in a sprint response, you're just going to be able to run around them and melee them. Missions like 343 Guilty Spark are going to have a lot of tension cut and atmosphere ruined. Like Sprint, another thing that falls in the line of copying trends because it's easy to do or it's popular are the hit markers. This is another example of lazy game design. Now, I will say the shield effects look good on the elites, but they need to be more visible and more apparent when they are closer to breaking. We can just compare footage real quick from the original CE and the new Campaign Evolved. It looks good, it's just not as apparent as I think it should be. The last of my big complaints is in the art direction. Now this isn't me saying Campaign Evolved looks bad, far from it. I think it looks good, but it's missing some things. The coloring is a little too bland, the grass needs to be more lush and very green. Look at when you come out of the cave from the first Halo, or when you exit the pod. Bright greens and bright blue skyblocks. We can even look at other parts of the Silent Cartographer. It would just be nice to see more grass and greener grass. Now let's jump to my biggest beef with the art direction, the Forerunner structures. They get the idea, but they miss the forest for the trees. They copied the very first Forerunner structure you see very well, but it's like they saw this, said this is peak, and copy and pasted it everywhere. Before I jump into the examples of this, I need to explain where I think Bungie's idea of the Forerunner structures were. In the original trilogy, they were these old, abandoned, mysterious places. Low lighting, rustic coloring, with deep and complex gradings. Futuristic brutalism. Look at the library, the ziggurat, or the place where you kill Truth in Halo 2. I could go on. Epitaph, Sandtrap, the list goes on. None of these places are clean. They may have some shine to them, but that's coming through a buildup of dust that, despite it being there, still shines through. It's not just one color either. It can be a dulled silver, or this glossy metallic color, a dull golden, or even engraved silver. But when you look at Halo Studios' Forerunner designs, it's this glossy silver metallic color all the way through. Don't even get me started on the triangles again. Anyways, the examples. Let's just take two stills. Both are from when you get out of the Pelican on Silent Cartographer. Now, see that structure on the hill? It's much more rounded. But when you look in Campaign Evolved, it's this giant structure. And they did the same thing to my poor hatch. The hatch was also changed to a triangular structure, and my poor hatch, how they've massacred my boy. I think these are the clearest examples of their misunderstanding that they have of the classic Forerunner architecture. I almost forgot to talk about player agency and the waypoints that they've added. Also, the contradictory boundaries. So quickly, the waypoints in Halo CE were purely used if you were lost and hadn't advanced to the next mission area yet. Now, in Campaign Evolved, they just are there from the start, telling the player where to go. They aren't forcing the player to go there right away, but it will definitely make more players likely to go that way, the way the devs want them to go, than off on their own. And another symptom of this is in the inability to go out into the water. The game isn't asking you to explore, it's guiding you where to go, and I think that despite being fairly linear, the original Combat Evolved begged for you to explore its world and go around every nook and cranny to discover its secrets. They then do this contradictory thing of removing the rock that blocks the Warhog from getting to the first pair of hunters. Now, I know the rock didn't block you in the original, but it definitely was annoying to get around and came at a personal time waster to do so. But getting past it led to this moment of doing something the game didn't want you to do, and that felt cool. Now the rock is just gone, and so are those possible emotions. I don't know if anyone else has these feelings though, but I would get super anxious when driving out into the ocean on Silent Cartographer. I like to do it. Just like 343 Guilty Spark still makes me feel uneasy despite knowing every tick of the mission, and I don't want this element lost or glossed over during development. Even if they don't fix these issues that I'm not alone in sharing, it wouldn't stop me from playing the game. It would just annoy me that new players to the franchise will have a potentially lesser experience. And speaking of lesser, I just want to rattle off some small things that I would like to see change, but it's not that big of a deal to me. The plasma pistol opens towards the player in Campaign Evolved, when in the original it opened it away, acting as a shield against the heat. I would really like to see them move away from regenerating health and move back to health packs. As much as it's annoying to be stuck in a section of a mission because of a low health, it also robs the player of those clutch moments where they're finally able to make it through by the skin of their teeth with low health. I understand it brings it more in line with future entries, but I think Halo Combat Evolved should try to hold on and remain faithful to its legacy game decisions. The needle got a little bit of a redesign in the sense that it got an ammo counter added to the back of it, and I don't think it needs to be there because the needles are the ammo counter themselves. The Covenant shouldn't be speaking English. Ever since Anniversary, they've had the Covenant speaking English. Now, I know they aren't speaking English and Cortana is translating it, but before Combat Evolved, the UNSC hadn't had this ability because Cortana hadn't had enough data to translate them. So canonically, the UNSC and Chief shouldn't be able to understand the Covenant until after Combat Evolved. Halo Combat Evolved is such an iconic game that shaped the history of first-person shooters, especially for the consoles. I understand Campaign Evolved does not erase it, I just hope that they respectfully remaster it and introduce a new audience to the great universe that is the Halo universe. Not only that, but I hope that this is the beginning of the rest of the series, all the way up to Reach getting the same treatment, and I hope that the criticism I outlined reach their ears and that they hear it enough that it gets to them to make those changes. Outside of that, I hope that they polish the shit out of it because I kept hearing it was having performance issues at the showcase. Even then, I would still probably buy it because Halo doesn't get enough content for me to skip it as a major fan. And not only that, but I hope we get a multiplayer announcement of some kind. What do you guys think of Campaign Evolved so far? Do you think it's fine and that the changes I'm looking for are purely nitpicky? Or do you think that an overhaul is needed in the art style area? Like the video if you've made it this far, it helps me in the algorithm. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. Have a good rest of your day. Oh, and I almost forgot, please leave a comment. Tell me what you guys think of the video or what you guys think of the Combat Evolved remake so far.